Hi, my name is Whitney Willis, and I'm currently under the weather, so apologies for how my voice sounds. But for this presentation, it kind of discusses literacy and how it kind of bleeds into science education, how how and why it is important for students to know their learning devices as they matriculate into further education. So I teach ninth, 10th, and 11th grade high school students in environmental as well as physical science. Okay, so why does literacy matter in science education? Of course, science is more so about hypothesizing and kind of like picking things or doing a lot of compare analysis, compare and contrast analysis, things of that nature. But of course, we have a bunch of words, we have a bunch of terminology, we have a bunch of vocabulary that students must need, that students need or must understand as they matriculate further into higher education. Also, they may need it in their careers. And so literacy really matters for that particular reason. So in this PubMed Central, when I was doing like, you know, reports, lab reports, or analysis reports, things that will be a bunch of different words that I didn't even know in college, or they'll discuss different types of strands of a virus or something like that. Each one had their own name, terminology, and so research suggests that strong literacy skills correlate with a higher achievement in science in general. And so that's really important for the students to understand what they're reading so that they can start pinpointing different areas of that lesson. And so signs of literacy needs for ninth and 11th grade students are vocabulary struggles, text avoidance, any type of procedural difficulties that they may not understand. So uh, they kind of avoid it, as well as any assessment patterns that we may see, bad grades continuously. And a really great example that I want to share that I noticed with my students is vocabulary struggles and text avoidance. And of course, it kind of leads into those difficulties and those patterns that we see on this right side. But vocabulary and text avoidance is very real. For example, we were learning the subatomic particles, so protons, electrons, neutrons, and like, atomic structure, how all that kind of works together. And I presented this information to them, and I'm like, asking them these questions and having these discussions, and like they were saying, oh, okay, well, protons or excuse me, not protons, they're saying, yeah, um, proteins are positive. Proteins are positive. I said, no, it's protons. Protons. And I wrote it out, everything. And some of them are still saying proteins or something like that. And if they, that's kind of like a huge on vocabulary struggles, but text avoidance, they'll kind of like look over completely. And I have to like go back to that. What does that say? Real benefits for science students in kind of like using these literacy skills and these vocabulary words is, of course, better comprehension for complex relationships further down the line, enhanced ability to analyze any type of research or data that they may be using post grad. As well as greater precision in technical vocabulary usage and improved comprehension of anything related to physics or biology. And so that kind of corresponds for both of them. So environmental science is kind of like a prelude or like a baby biology, as well as physical science is like a prelude or a baby chemistry/physics. So classroom strategies that I could do for me is, of course, explicitly write vocabulary around the room, have it accessible, have them to look at it every single day. The spelling, even break it down at the bottom. So like I have protons, I have like at the bottom a phonic reading of how to pronounce it so they can continue to practice it that way, as well as any text annotated protocols. And so that's just some type of it's a specific approach where scientific texts are used in comprehension. So of course we're using this particular word and we're pairing it in like a specific paragraph, and they'll have to like use context clues to figure out what that word means. And the rest of it is kind of related to that same discipline. And so, as we further our integration of science literacy, of course, we can start incorporating pre-reading, during reading, and post-reading. So we kind of did a lot of this during college. So they'll have everything already online for us, any readings, chapters, blah, blah, blah. And we'll have to read like the chapter, whatever, before class starts. So that's the pre-reading. And then during reading, we'll have a discussion in class. The professor kind of understands what we're talking about, or like we understood what we were reading. And then post-reading, we'll have like an assignment or an activity over over the that chapter online. And so I feel like we need to start integrating this in high school to prepare them as early as possible. Some students, if not a vast majority, is not as receptive to do pre-reading or like doing that before they come to class, just because it's like a maturity thing. I had struggles with it in ninth and 10th grade too, or excuse me, not the ninth and 10th, but in freshman and sophomore year, I had kind of struggles doing pre-readings too, because it was like that was my own responsibility. But kind of exposing them to the integration as early as possible is awesome. And those were this and the these are my two sources that I kind of dig up to promote my ideal thinking. So most of this stuff is kind of like ideal thinking. As I stated, pre-reading, during reading, and post-reading. That's what I kind of did during college. And so these are just sources that kind of amped up my wording. Okay. Thank you. Bye.